Hi, so I'm going to demonstrate a method for creating variable width listbox columns in Excel. And to do so, I'd like to show you a real-world application of this. This is a search engine that I created, and I'm going to just do a simple search here. And you can see that the search results in the data coming up into a list box with multiple columns on a user form. So if you look closely at some of the data, for example this right here, you can see that it's cut off. So what I wanted to do was to give the user the opportunity to resize these columns. So let's take a look at it in action. So now you can see the results in full in this particular column. You could also resize the other columns. So this is the generic form of what you just saw, and this file is actually available on the link that's shown on the screen. So if you follow that link and download that file, you'll be able to get exactly what you see here on this demonstration. So here we just have some generic data that I put into a spreadsheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the VBA editor and we're going to take a look at the form itself. So here's the user form that I created, and let's see in action first. So what you see here is that the list box on this user form is populated with the data from the worksheet. And again, you can see we have variable width columns. Now, a couple things to note on here. One is that if you wanted to shut down a column completely or hide the column, all you have to do is take and slide the column shut, and that column actually goes to width 0, which turns that column off. The other thing I want you to notice is that column E here, or the last column on the user form, is actually reducing in size as the other columns are being increased. And there is a good reason for that. One of the behaviors of the list box in Excel is that as the columns exceed the width of the list box, the scroll bar here at the bottom actually appears. And what happens is if these columns run off the list box and you use the scroll bar, they'll no longer align underneath these headers. So I'll demonstrate that more in detail a little bit later, but in the meantime, my workaround here was to have the last column actually disappear and eventually turn to 0. So let's take a look at how this works. Okay, so what we have here is the user form, and the first thing you'll notice is I have a list box on here. The other thing you'll notice is that I use these labels as column headers, and these are named as C1, C2, so on and so forth. This naming convention is what is driven by the code, so if you choose to use a different naming convention, then by all means do so, but you'll have to alter the code for it to work. And the same thing goes for these, what I call width adjusters, which I named as width adjust 1, width adjust 2, so on and so forth. So again, if you choose to name them differently, then you'll have to alter the code to reflect that. You'll also notice that the labels are not necessarily aligned to the columns or sized to the columns, and that's something that I set at runtime. Okay, so let's take a look at the code for the user form. Okay, so in the user form initialize event and throughout the code, actually, I have the code commented so that it will hopefully help you modify it to fit your actual application. So the first comment is the name of the list box itself, and you'll change it in this one place only, and that'll carry out throughout the code. The next thing is that I use this row source method to bring the data into the list box from the spreadsheet, and whatever method you happen to use will work, so it doesn't really matter. You can take out this row source line here or modify it to work for you. The column count is going to be set by the size of the array that we're going to set up in the column with adjust module, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. You're also going to set your initial column list right here, and depending on how many columns you have will dictate how many of these lines you have in the code, and we can add and subtract those, and we'll do a little demonstration on that further down in the video. The next code that you see here takes and does what I described in the user form, which is to set the label lists so that they align with the columns in the list box, and that is what this for next loop does. And then this next line here actually checks the width of the list box and sets the width of the last column header to match. Okay, so the next line is a call to a subroutine, and what this is actually doing is taking and reading in these guys here and setting your column lists to those sizes. And moving on here, we see another comment that says add or subtract subs to match number of adjustable columns in the list box. And so what that means is that you're going to copy one of these subs here, which are the mouse move events, and add on for however many columns that you have. So again, we'll do a demonstration of that a little bit down the road. So basically, this is the main driver of what's going to adjust the columns. Okay, so this is what's actually doing the work here, and figuring out where everything needs to be. So this is the adjust width sub, and basically all this is doing, and you will not have to modify any of this, but this will increase or decrease the width of the labels and the columns, and move the width adjusters depending on the mouse movement. So as mentioned previously, I wanted to show you how to make it so that the last column will run off of the end of the list box, or the width of the list box, and you can see what the behavior here is. So in the column width adjust module, under the adjust width sub, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment out this code here, which is an if else end statement. So we'll comment that code out and run the form, and you can see what happens here. So now when I increase the width of one of the columns, what's happening is the column is actually going off of the page, the last column is, and now the scroll bar appears, and as I move over you can see that the column data and the column header is no longer aligned. So if that's something that you want, again, just comment out that code or take that code out completely. I also said that we are going to look at adding a new column on, so let's take a look at doing that. So let's start by increasing the width of our user form, And then what I'm simply going to do is take and copy and paste one of these header labels here. We'll just do a Control C, Control V, and now we have our new label. And we'll do the same thing for the width adjuster. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the locations, the vertical locations on the form. Okay. The other thing we have to do is we're going to have to set the names of these so that they match the naming convention that we're using. So we'll set this last one here to C6, and we'll change the caption here to column F, and let's do the same for the width adjuster. So we have width adjust 4. We'll copy that to the new one, making it width adjust 5. Alright, that's it for the user form. Let's go back to the code. And following along here, let's first change this row source here. We'll change this to column F, which I already have a column of data in place there, so that'll be included in the list box. The next thing would be to copy one of these lines to add the new column in. So we have col size now for column 6, and we'll leave that set at the initial of 51. And we're going to copy one of these subs, and we'll make this for width adjust 5, and we're going to change this as well to 5. Okay, now in order for this to work, we also have to set a couple properties here in the column width adjust module. One being the size of the array. So col size 1 to 5 is now going to become col size 1 to 6. And we're also going to add a new column width here. For column 6. Alright, let's take a look at our work. And there you have it. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this video and get some use out of this. Again, you can follow the link below to the Excel Matters website, and if you have any questions, you could find me on mrexcel.com. I am Mr. If Only. Private message me if you'd like to ask any questions in regards to this. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a nice day.